Many characters in A Song of Ice and Fire, like Cersei Lannister and Catelyn Stark, are mothers. Part of their arcs has to do with the influence of motherhood in their lives. Although Dumb and Dumber failed to depict how motherhood affects the characters' lives in Game of Thrones, in House of the Dragon they didn't forget. Fire and Blood touches upon it very lightly because of its tone, but the creators of House of the Dragon didn't fail to explore what motherhood means for some of our favorite characters. But do childbirths have to be portrayed as they did in House of the Dragon? That has been one complaint I've seen in all social media. Right in the first episode, we have a brutal scene involving birthing. It's not quite a birth scene, but a slaughter. In medieval ages, birthing a child could mean the mother's death, or both hers and the child's. Martin slightly exaggerates when it comes to death rates of stillborns and women dying in childbirth, but it is based on tangible data. Many women suffered greatly and many more died in childbirth, regardless of whether they were rich or poor. Many options were available for the woman who was birthing, but none were particularly effective. Largely, these consisted of herbal poultices, folk remedies, and devout prayer. Obviously, women back then didn't have the technology we have today and had to rely mainly on midwives. Childbirth was predominantly women's business, and physicians and doctors only attended under the most extreme circumstances, such as in Queen Jane Seymour's case when she was giving birth to the future king and had problems. We can also observe in Aemma's birthing scene that the Grand Maester doesn't approach the queen until a harsher measure is necessary. The violent childbirths of medieval ages were like torture. Queens and peasant women were all conscious that they could be subjected to death while giving birth. According to Rachel Pod, 1 out of every 20 women died in childbirth. Although a minor exaggeration, the Targaryen birthings that end in death are likely because of another crucial factor. Incest has been a Targaryen custom at least ever since Aegon the Conqueror and his sisters, and that alone increases birth complications. When two similar sets of genes are paired together, there's a greater chance that a recessive disease, one that wouldn't ordinarily have a chance to be expressed if it were in only one parent's genome. In European royal families, consanguinity occurred because of a bottleneck effect. They wanted to marry only other royals. The result was inbreeding. Thus, diseases like hemophilia and porphyria became overrepresented in this group. When Rhaenyra gives birth to a stillborn Visenya, we see the effects of inbreeding as she is born with scales, just like the book describes her. This fantastical condition affects Targaryens due to inbreeding most likely. There are countless other Targaryen stillborns from previous and the following generations precisely because of the inbreeding. The fertility issues go as far as incapacitating Targaryens from having children, like Maegor. Adding to the Targaryen complications, the dangers of giving birth are at par with battling a war. A woman would have no way of knowing how her baby was, or if she could give birth to the baby without endangering herself, or both. Birthing was a game of life and death, a battle in its own right. The intercuts between the jousting scene and Aemma's birthing scene are a parallel meant to tell us how much women will suffer throughout the show. It's a visual prologue to what the female characters will endure, both in war and for their children. The violence and graphic birth scenes are needed because we know blood is spilt on many places beyond battlefields. We know births weren't easy back then, but to see it is to experience it from the character's point of view, and thus our empathy increases. Despite the heavy symbolism of the birthing scenes, motherhood is not only depicted in these. Being pregnant is the start of motherhood. Birthing a child is the pain and battles yet to come, and being a mother holds many phases of pain for our characters. After giving birth to Joffrey, Rhaenyra must see Alicent for her to see if it's another bastard or not. Upon showing her newborn to Alicent and Viserys, Rhaenyra leaves their chamber to rest, leaving a trail of blood behind her. The complications of birth don't just end after the birth of the child, thus realistically portraying what it means to have a baby. Because it does happen even nowadays. Bellies don't deflate after the birth of a child, unlike what many films and shows portray. They go slowly down. Depicting a realistic aftermath of being pregnant is also as important as the childbirthing scenes, because we see the pain just doesn't end there. Trotula or writings attributed to her offer more practical advice to the postpartum mother. Her advice is: for pain, take rue, mugwort, and camphor, grind them well, and wrap them in a cloth and insert as suppository. Yes, there. For rupture of the lower parts after birth, take root of comfrey, dry it, and then pulverize it well, and put with a fine powder of cumin and also cinnamon in the vajay. For the birth of the womb and for bringing out the afterbirth, take root of parsley, leaves of leek and borage, and extract the juice, and mix in a little oil, and give to the patient to drink, and put vinegar in the vajay, and she will be freed. I don't know about you, but that certainly sounds unpleasant to me to put in the nether regions. After knowing how painful giving birth was in the medieval ages, and to our characters, the viewer can feel repulsed by the battle that it is to be a mother, but knows the amount of pain they felt. Given the main characters are mothers, this will only increase empathy towards them more than just seeing them lose a battle on the battlefield. And when the children grow up to make mistakes of their own, we understand most what it's like for these mothers to see their children just be complete idiots. It's hard for Alicent to be a better mother and see Rhaenyra so easy being a great mother. Olivia Cook said that Rhaenyra is the mother that Alicent wishes she could be. That's just another cause for Alicent's resentment because it's something she's doing better than Alicent ever could. The conflict delves deeper when it comes to being a mother. Although she cherishes her children, Alicent sees Aegon's promiscuity. Aemond behaves as he wishes when it comes to ridiculing his nephews, and perhaps even Helena's obliviousness affects her. One thing that's not spoken about enough is that it's hard to be a mother, and Alicent is a catalyst for the matter to be explored in House of the Dragon, making her more sympathetic. Meanwhile, it's frustrating to see how Rhaenyra handles it far better than Alicent, keeping a good relationship with her sons and even nieces, stepdaughters, and cousins. Except Rhaenyra knows what it's like to have an absent parent, and perhaps that consciousness guides her into raising her children better than Alicent. Maybe Alicent wants to be a better mother by crowning Aegon to give him some comfort that his father loved him in some way. Crowning Aegon as soon as possible is a selfish act nonetheless, because Rhaenyra doesn't even know about her father's death, and she's the heir. Despite comparing herself to Rhaenyra, Rhaenyra technically sends Luke to his death, even when mothers try to do what's best for their children, protecting them from the world of Westeros has a way to make tragedy happen. In the Dance of Dragons, many children will die beyond Luke, and mothers won't be able to do anything about it. Naturally, their children's deaths will encourage the mothers to do certain things, as we can see from Rhaenyra's silent and powerful reaction. Losing family, it's certainly going to motivate a lot of characters in this show. But when a parent loses a child, it's a far more devastating loss. Ironically and tragically, by fighting for and protecting their children, Rhaenyra and Alicent are destroying the future generations of the Targaryen family. To secure their future, they must destroy the faraway future. When the Dance of Dragons ends, the king is called unfortunate nicknames like the Unlucky, the Unhappy, and most often Dragonbane. Grandmaster Munkin calls him the Broken King. Of all the men to sit the Iron Throne, he remains perhaps the most enigmatic, a shadowy monarch who said little and did less, and lived a life steeped in grief and melancholy. In truth, he was a joyless man. Fire and Blood leaves no doubt that the king that goes to the Iron Throne after the Dance of Dragons is broken by what happened to his family. Therefore, motherhood is a force that can create and destroy in unison in this case. With the Dance of Dragons, the Targaryens diminished their power by seeking power. Dragons began growing weaker when the dance ended, thus putting an end to what made the Targaryens a hegemony, not just in Westeros, but the whole world they inhabit, later enabling Robert's rebellion to depose them. Motherhood is a compelling state for the main and secondary characters, which will propel them further towards their goals. The parallels between battle, Syrax feeling Rhaenyra's pain, for example, and birthing scenes make a strong symbolism for what the mothers of this show must endure. Beyond the pain of childbirth, women must also fight the same battles as men and go on. Their pain is the same their children feel, but it is also the same that will haunt the future of the Targaryens. Exploring themes that come with motherhood while showing a war shows how far mothers are willing to go for their children. Mothers can be of a gentle nature but can be as fierce as a dragon when protecting their children. So motherhood is a pivotal element to depict in the Dance of Dragons. So I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time. Bye!